Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of Tuesday, September 4, 2018. Is there a minister in the house? I don't have a note on who that was supposed to be to give us the prayer. I do have a volunteer, though. a voluntold.
Would you please rise? I never quite know what's going on. I will take it upon myself. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather tonight after this day. We thank you for the blessings that you give us as individuals, as citizens of this community. We are so fortunate to live in the land, the state, and the city that we do. Now that we ask as leaders, council members, mayor, staff, and citizens that we make decisions that are best for what you want for us as a community. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Albertson.
Here.
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Lallam.
Here.
Manti. Absent. Roby. Absent. Solom.
Here.
Thorson.
Here.
Billhauer.
Here.
Y.
Present.
Thank you.
The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval? Moved
Second.
by Councilman Bueller, second by Councilman Lallam. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 2 is public comment, and this is the time set aside for anyone who would like to speak about something that is not on the agenda. Please come forward and say your name into the microphone if that's the case. See none, we'll move on to item number 3, which is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Billhauer, second by Councilman Y. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The fourth item on the agenda is the appointment of Chris Carter to the Municipal Utilities Board. And I would look for a motion and second for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Albertson, second by Councilman Thorson. And I will say a little bit about Chris. She's the retired operations manager for the Public Opinion newspaper, and she's been in the community for many, many years and is a very capable woman, and very fortunate that she's willing to serve on the Municipal Utilities Board. So any other discussion?
I would second that.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is application for a transfer of ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license, retail on-off sale wine license, and video lottery license from BMG Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Happy Jacks, 21 North Maple, to Schwalm Corp., doing business as The Lounge, 21 North Maple. And this is contingent upon Board of Adjustment approval. I will look for a motion and second for approval, and then I'll open the public hearing after that. So we have a motion by Solom and a second by Lallam. And now I will open the public hearing. And Matt, did you want to say a few words about this being unique? Took him by surprise.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. I was not prepared to talk about that.
Okay. This one there's nothing really different with the normal transfer. The only thing that was different is when the transfer came up, we did go upstairs and ask about the zoning, how that's a normal process. And at some point, I don't know when, this location has never actually received the Board of Adjustment approval as far as to be a bar, but I believe it's been one for quite some time. So we just wanted to make the council aware that with your approval tonight, it will still go back to the Board of Adjustment. I think it's set for September 20th meeting. So then this license would not take effect until after the Board of Adjustment has seen it. So it's just kind of a little housekeeping that, I don't know, it's been probably a long time ago.
Right. Very unlikely that it would not pass Board of Adjustment, but if it did not pass Board of Adjustment, then it would be nullified automatically?
That is correct, because the motion would state that it will be contingent upon the Board of Adjustment approval.
All right. Is there anyone else? The public hearing is open. Anyone else that wants to speak about this issue? See none, I will close the public hearing and look for discussion. Any comments or questions? Councilman Danforth?
Kristen, can you help me out here just a little bit? It says the lounge at 21. Is that the current location of the lounge as we know it, right over here?
Yes.
What does that mean then? It's doing business as Happy Jack's at 21 North Maple. Because where's Happy Jack's at?
It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
What's not doing business as that then?
That's just that.
Shannon, you got to turn the mic on.
You got to say your name
Say
and
your name and all that stuff.
You should take your hat off too. No.
That was a non-shower day, so I'm my hat off. All right, Happy Jack's is a portion that's in the back half of the building. It's got a private entrance sitting in what would be the northwest corner of the building. And the lounge portion is just the place where we have food, beverage, et cetera, like that.
Okay, so the Happy Jack's is operating as Happy Jack's as far as the casino goes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that.
yeah, that is a little confusing. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 6 is the Urban Renewal District Assessment Roll, resolution number 18-35. We'll look for a motion and second for approval, and then I'll open the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Danforth, second by Councilman Vilhauer. All right, I will open the public hearing, and I suspect there are quite a few people. Vanessa, would you like to, as the president of the Urban Renewal Board, say a few words before we start? And Kristen will let too before we have the open public.
Do you want me to just start with the process? Okay.
If you want to go first, Kristen, go for it.
Okay. This is coming before you. The Urban Renewal Board did approve putting the assessment roll before you. So the finance office is responsible for notifying with the notice of public hearing, and then as well as putting the assessment roll together. So what you see before you is the current assessments for those properties. If it is approved tonight, then the next step is it's actually turned over directly to the county, and it would be on the 2019 taxes of those properties. So that's just kind of a little bit of how the process would go upon approval. If it is not approved tonight, then of course there is no assessment to the property owners.
Councilman Vilhauer?
Kristen, I got a question on the process. Okay, if it is approved, is that stay in effect until until we remove it? I mean, or does it come before us every year?
This actually comes before you every year. It's just for the year. So if you look, it'll say the 2018 payable in 2019. So this would be a one-time tax assessment.
Okay. Vanessa?
Vanessa Victor, Chairman of the Urban Renewal Board. So the assessment had been historically in place until about 5 years ago, where it was taken off. Last year was my first year on the Urban Renewal Board, and we're in front of you with the same recommendation to assess. And through the end of this year, we ran out of funds. So Urban Renewal Board has no funds in its kitty to do any improvements downtown. The main reasons, my belief of the main reasons for it not going through was a lack of a plan, was all the feedback that we had received. We wanted to use the 2015 charrette as a guideline for a plan going forward. but it needed some reworking to make it a planning tool. So this year we applied for grants, asked a lot of favors, and came up with basically 3 main goals that we're working towards. One is the streetscaping plan that's in the front lobby here. The other is a downtown park that encapsulates some of the elements that were identified in the charrette that it's hard to get on your typical sidewalk section. And then the third thing is, with the realization of a downtown park and the improvements, we're going to need some help. We're a volunteer board, and we only have so much time. So we'd really like to get a downtown coordinator into the mix of things eventually. So that's kind of what we foresee the assessment money going towards in the future. Ideally, we don't just want to spend as soon as it comes, because we don't want to run into another situation where we have absolutely no funds to act on anything. As it stands, we don't have maintenance funds if anything were to break down downtown. You can see the flowers are a quarter of what they had been in the past. So we're just trying to get things back up to status quo.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak at the public hearing? Please state your name and say your piece. And if there's a lot of people here, I don't know if everyone intends to speak, but if you've heard your concern spoken previously, please don't repeat ad nauseum. Try to keep your comments to a reasonable amount of time, just a couple of minutes if possible, and don't repeat. Okay.
Mike Landsberger. I think it was 2-3 years ago, I'm not sure, might have been longer than that, but we had a petition that was overwhelmingly against the urban renewal tax. And it was all for good reasons, only certain parts of the downtown is being fixed up. A lot of us are being left out of it. And, it's a heavy tax for some of us. I think my taxes on the buildings I put up over the last 5-6 years is $2,600. And for me to spend $2,600 just to fix up the front of other people's buildings, I got plenty I can do with it. I don't need to spend it in that way. And I don't think it's going to progress downtown Watertown business-wise. It might look nice, but this isn't going to make businesses boom downtown, And I'm too busy working to notice flowers or listen to the music that's being pumped in. Who is all on this board besides Vanessa?
Vanessa Victor, Christy Lakai, Jason Rademski, Nancy Turback-Berry, and am I forgetting? Adam
Were they aware of that petition we turned in some years back?
Oh, I think so. And this is, Vanessa just said what the things were. This isn't just fixing up other people's buildings. This is for a downtown park, for the streetscape project, and for a downtown coordinator. And I think that those things together hopefully will change things downtown.
Not likely. But there's no parking downtown. That's the big issue for businesses, is no parking. You're not gonna, and it's just too expensive to remodel the existing buildings downtown. You can see what they stuck in the GOS and still didn't get it fixed up to par for what they stuck into it. But I don't think it's gonna look good for some people to think, well, aren't those flowers nice? This is good. They're gonna do street lights or whatever. But for me to spend $2,600 a year, over 10 years, it's $26,000. I'd be crazy if I went along with that. I wouldn't be thinking straight. I shouldn't be doing anything if I can think like that. I shouldn't be doing anything. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Steph and Jaden is also on the Urban Renewal Board. didn't mention him. Councilman Lallam?
I was just going to make a comment that the urban renewal tax does not go towards people fixing up their buildings. The buildings has a revolving loan
I
program.
realize that.
Yeah,
But
so
how much is going to be spent on First Avenue? You know, I know the last bunch, there was no flowers, there was no benches, there was no.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't, the microphones aren't picking that up, Mike, so we have,
One more second before.
won't you let-
Give you 1 second.
All right, thank you. Thank you. You know, in the last deal, there was no money spent on First Avenue. We didn't get flowers, we didn't get park benches, we didn't make it look like a happy street. They never spent a penny for us. And we're gonna shell out money to make other places look happy.
right, and that's the same argument of my children are all grown up, why should I pay school taxes?
Well, I think the whole country's revolting against the system.
My name's Nancy Turback-Berry, and I would like to urge you to assess me. I'm one of the downtown property owners. It happens that I paid for the benches in front of my building, and I pay for the flowers in front of my building, but I'm happy to do that because I think we need a partnership of private and public commitment to downtown. It's not true that this is a heavy tax. It's actually quite a light tax. It's less than 0.4%. So, for example, if you're paying $2,600 in taxes, that's apparently on about $700,000 worth of assessed value. And I would note that assessments generally are very low downtown and perhaps throughout the city. I don't know. So there isn't any of us that is taxed heavily if you assess this. The second thing I would like to note is to echo what Adam Lallam said, and that is that these funds don't go to fix up the front of anyone's building. It is true that we have to start somewhere. And, you know, one of the first years that the alley project was done downtown, it wasn't behind my building, but eventually it got there. And one thing I noticed is that when there is improvement, it starts spreading. And we saw that with the alley projects. The public money that went into the alleys was multiplied by the private money spent as it spreads. And, you know, we had to cut back this year even on just the flowers. So, yeah, they did just go down Kemp and part of the way down Kemp. But that's exactly why we're here. We can't do it for nothing. There are many of us giving our time, but we don't have any staff. And we're one of the few, probably one of the few boards that doesn't exactly fit into any city department that would automatically provide staff. But we need to get back to where we have some funding for at least a part-time coordinator. And I think that while it's really important that the city as a whole commit to downtown vitalization, and so the huge, I mean, the main working oars when we get to some of these projects is going to have to be city funds generally, not just the tax on downtown. But I do think it's right. It's both logical and I think morally fair that those of us who own property downtown have a little more skin in the game, and a 0.375 or whatever assessment is really very little, asking very little of any of us. I hope long term that one of the things that the city thinks about, and I know that it's financially tight, but a suggestion that was made to me today by one of the other very active investors downtown is that that when it comes to large expenditures, that the city consider fronting the money and then making special assessments so that people can see what they're paying for. And honestly, that's, I think, how we got sidewalks in northeast South Dakota. I mean, in northeast Watertown. Was that sort of project. So, you know, this isn't the meat and potatoes of the whole downtown vitalization. This is at most kind of a small bag of potato chips. But we've got to have it to have something to work with, both for those visible things that do help in the short term vitalize energies downtown, things like the flowers and what activities we can create. But we also really need to get back to where we are, we're routinely adding income so that we can commit to some long-term things that we simply can't do with zero funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Randy Gribble, and first off, I want to thank all you guys for the job you do. It's kind of fun to come up here once in a while. I got a couple questions. First off, do any of you guys own property downtown and have a business downtown? I don't think you do. And so it's hard for you to feel like you're being penalized for being downtown. I realize that I like downtown Watertown. It's a beautiful place. But it's everybody's place. It's just not the business owners, you know. So my feelings are, if the Main Street or urban renewal needs money, it should come from everybody, not just penalize a few. The other thing is, it just doesn't feel right to be penalized for being downtown. I mean, a lot of our businesses, people I know downtown can go anywhere and do what they do. We don't really depend on walk-in trade, and a lot of downtown does. And so I looked up urban renewal, I Googled it, and I was involved with this when Mayor Jensen was here, and it first became when it first come to light, it was the federal government that had a plan for urban renewal, and it was a 3-year plan, and that was supposed to be it. And it was a deal where the federal government would match what the city could collect for 3 years only. And a lot of that involved new heating systems and stuff for the loss of our steam heat downtown and our buildings and stuff. And at that time, that was a good deal to get them buildings up and running. But I kind of like Mike. I don't think that we all got our own buildings to take care of. I take care of my building. I keep it nice. I got flowers, you know. I got grass I mow. My idea is if the people like Nancy wants to donate or have their own deal, I'm fine with that. You know, I mean, let them have their organization. But why do we got to pay for it? I don't make, you know, I don't make a lot of money like a lawyer, and I strive to really every year to pay my taxes. I struggle, you know, and my property is an extra $1,000 on the 2 properties I have, and that's just hard for me to come up with. And so I don't know. I think you guys need to look at another plan. I'm not against making Watertown nice and stuff, but I'm just not for penalizing or taxing just a few individuals, because it's no different than somebody comes to your block and says, well, we're going to form this organization and we're going to raise all your taxes so we can do something around this block. You know, it's the same thing, and you guys wouldn't like it. So, and then you got to come back every year and do it. You know, it was supposed to be a 3-year plan back in the 80s or whenever that was, and then it was supposed to be done, and it's been here ever since. And so I just don't believe it's right. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Kay Solberg, and we own the property over here. I guess I would just like to bring up a few points, even though I served on the Urban Renewal Board for several years. I believe in what the Urban Renewal Board is about and what it should be working for. But I just feel like we're, at this point, going about it in the wrong way. For one, tonight is the first time I've heard that, quote, we have any kind of a plan. Nobody in the uptown have been invited, at least that I know of, to a meeting that sits there and shares with us some of the things. We see a picture in the paper that says they want to put a skateboard park or a skating park, whatever, on top of 3 buildings that we have people in, when we have 29 buildings right now in the uptown, what would be the core 12 block urban renewal area, 29 of them that are currently vacant. And when you don't have tenants in there right now that you're collecting rent on, how can you afford to have more taxes put on your property for that reason? I guess another thing that I think that we are being shorted on is the Urban Renewal Board itself. The people that pay in are the property owners, not the business owners, even though in the end the business owners are probably going to be asked to pay more rent as a result of it. But yet you look at who you guys have appointed to that committee, that particular board, We have one person on there right now that owns property in the uptown. To me, that's taxation without representation. All 5 of those people should own property in the uptown. All of them, I feel. And $67,000 is what we would collect. When I served on it, we collected 30. Therefore, that shows me that we have increased our assessed value that we have on all the properties in the uptown, but yet we don't get to collect more rent. If we sat there and raised the rents on our building, they'd be empty, because there's no way we can get the rents in the urban renewal district that they can get down on Highway 212. It just isn't going to work. $67,000 sounds like maybe a lot of money, but the projects that Vanessa just got done talking about, that's not going to cover hardly a dime of it. Even the skate park, or I call it skate park, but the park that was put in where Shooters is, there is no way that, it was proposed at $900,000 is what the paper reported. Well, look at how many years it would take at collecting taxes from the property owners to pay for that, and we'd be knocking down 3 properties, 2 of which have businesses in them, to be able to take that. So I guess I think we are kind of going about this the wrong way. I think all the plans should be put in place. Meetings should be held with all of the property owners, explained how this money is going to be spent, including how the city is going to put in money towards in order to make these projects go, and then go from there. And that the board should be people that are property owners within the district. Thanks.
Thank you. Just for the public's benefit, the meetings that the Urban Renewal Board holds are all open to the public, and their agendas are published. And if you would like to get a notification of the meetings, we can help you with that. You can get a text message or you can get an email, so you're notified of the time and place of the upcoming meetings.
And I do, Sarah, but that's not a community meeting with all the property.
Good evening, Geyser, Jeff. We've talked decimal points, and you know from my past conversations with you that I'm pretty black and white on what I talk about. Right now, I put $16,000 out of my pocket into this urban renewal. How many buildings are empty? What have I seen change? I've seen the color of the flowers change. That doesn't do it. Flowers and statues do not do it. It looks great. Wonderful. Between my city occupation tax, my urban renewal, and my property tax, since I bought my business, I've spent $160,000. I wish that was in my retirement. Property owners are penalized and even discriminated against for having buildings in uptown Watertown. $1,500 per year to your property tax is a huge expense, and there's no way for me to dispute it once it's been put in place, because the way the system is set up is the urban renewal tax comes first. If I don't pay my urban renewal tax, I don't pay my property tax. If I don't pay my property tax, my license that I need to operate my business is exposed. I could theoretically be put out of business by not paying an urban renewal tax. To me, the real question is what type of businesses will succeed financially and draw support from the community? How do you get people uptown? You have to have a draw. You have to have the right businesses, the right opportunities for those folks to come up rather than go to the Walmarts of the world. We're ma and pa's. We need to find out what is the niche that we need to fill. I have yet to hear anybody tell me we need this kind of business, that kind of business, that kind of business to bring our citizens and passers through to our uptown Watertown. I really don't think, and strongly don't think, that this urban renewal tax is fair, and I do believe it's discriminatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Jeff Autos Repair. I guess I'd like to start out by you as property owners that own your own business, how you'd feel about getting taxed on your property and then getting taxed again. It's a secondary tax. I just don't think it's very fair at all. I've probably been said again. And then, like other people have said, maybe the people on Main Street want to volunteer and pay that tax. I don't know. But I think it should be voluntary if they do. And then I guess I'd like to say that does any state or any towns in South Dakota that you know of have urban renewal tax?
Oh, I'm sure there are numerous.
You know for sure?
Yes.
Sioux Falls does?
Spearfish, Sioux Falls.
I just wondered if, I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd ask that and see what their models have done and how they fix their uptown, But let's see, what else do I have here? I don't know, like a park, I don't know who's that's going to really benefit. I mean, as far as the adjacent bar or something that's going to be by there, if there's a band playing, they'll benefit, but we won't see anything as far as someone driving in with their car or whatever, because I think the uptown businesses have changed. I know Jeff kind of said that, but years ago it was all dependent on walk-in. The buildings were all small, and all the people from town came. There was no mall or any of that, and now that's all been distracted from us. We don't have that basic downtown clientele like we used to, so we just had to adapt to other stuff. What else do I have here? I think it should be a voluntary tax if they want to pay. And I just say lots of businesses won't benefit because you're just helping a few and taxing the many, is what I'm thinking. That's kind of my thoughts on it. So, and it survived for 5 years with no funds at all, and I think it was just kind of a fat, fluffy cat there with lots of money in it. And we like to not feed it so much, I guess, or something like that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Val Gronke, and I have some questions about this tax. What type of businesses are there downtown? How many bars? How many secondhand stores? How many shops? How many are service? Because realistically, a service store is not going to benefit from this. I don't have a shop there, but I'm looking as a consumer. And as a consumer, I don't see that the flowers, yeah, they're pretty, but that isn't what draws me downtown. What would draw me downtown is a type of business. I think that the city needs to concentrate more on, let's take this part of town and let's make it specialty shops for women. Let's take this part of town and make it specialty shops for men. Let's take this and make it something for the children. Because you need to have everybody come downtown. Not just people who need service, not just women, and not just men. So, the park isn't what's going to do it. You need to draw the children, you're going to need toys, and you're going to need games. I think that one thing that you guys got downtown is absolutely wonderful for a community mix where you go into this room and you've got an hour to get out of it. Wonderful. Let's promote that kind of stuff. Let's let everybody know in all of South Dakota that we have that kind of stuff. Maybe we can draw more people into the town by using our dollars in that way. Let's use them dollars to advertise what's down there. Not put flowers out, not do benches. Let's get that advertising out. Because we got to educate everybody to bring them in. That's what a community is about, is working as a community, not just working on one particular thing. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And a few more notes. The purpose was not to penalize anyone. the amount of hours that the Urban Renewal Board has invested in the plan that is there today, granted it's not fully flushed out, but we've only had a year and we had absolutely no funds. But we have pulled in every favor and every grant that we possibly could, working for the downtown. So there are some benefits in having an Urban Renewal Board because we are there to promote your property and try the best we can. And I agree that we need somebody to coordinate and say that all of these amenities are downtown. It just can't be just a board of 4 people. I would encourage all of you to come to the Urban Renewal Board meetings because we value your input. It doesn't have to be once a year at this time that we see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Anything else before I close the public hearing?
Thanks, Mayor and City Council members. Chris Shilkin with the Watertown Development Company. New to town, so forgive me if I don't know all the history of the urban renewal, but I've come from many towns that have had them. They've been very successful in their redevelopment of downtown. Our group is bringing businesses to town all the time, enticing them to either stay in Watertown and expand or relocate to Watertown, and downtowns are becoming a focal point of the attraction for new business attraction and retention, as well as workforce retention as well. Just today we had developers from Fargo that were looking at some projects for downtown who pay taxes in Fargo and expect services out of those taxes. So we're also working on, which we're meeting on next week, as some new plans for some downtown programs as well that could tie into this very nicely and give some of these things that people are questioning some more incentive to do something downtown. So just looking at it from an outsider's perspective, a lot of good bones in downtown, a lot of opportunity. I think there's a reason there's some vacant buildings, and I think the programs we're going to propose will help start changing the direction of that. So I know nobody likes new taxes, but I think there is a nice opportunity to get the momentum switched and start the revitalization of downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? All right, I will close the public hearing and look for some more discussion from the council before we take action. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to make? Councilman Danforth?
Is there something specific in ordinance about
A question of those here, just so that I have a visual. I know we've heard from several of you, but raise your hand if you are against the tax at this point as we sit here today, just so we have a visual. Okay. And please raise your hand if you are for it, so this we have some idea of who is here. Okay. Right.
Some for and against tonight. I heard the comment made that it's the downtown is everybody's downtown, and I could not agree with you more about that. I think that the downtown is an extremely important part of our community, and we need to keep it alive, and we need to make investments. And I could see, first of all, if the council does not approve this assessment, I hope they will invest city funds in doing some projects downtown. And if they do pass the assessment, I hope they use that as matching funds for city investments, because we as a community should be investing in our downtown. And I do believe that the projects that the Urban Renewal Board has put forward are all very good projects that will generate interest and activity downtown, and it will be the water level raising all ships. And so if we get a park, for instance, more people will come down, more people will eat here, more people will see it, realize there's a shop they hadn't seen before. Next time you might be patronized by someone that didn't even know you were there because they came to do something else. And that's how it happens. We have to take care of our community if we want it to thrive. And this is one way that we do it. We do assessment projects all over. I mean, we improve our roads that way too. And the Lake Campesca Water Project District taxes its members for improvements that are good for our entire community, not just those who pay the tax. So I see it as kind of an indication of community pride and optimism about what we can do and how we can improve our community. And I'm looking forward, whether it's through assessment dollars or just city investment, in seeing some things happening downtown in the future. Are there any other comments? Councilman Danforth?
Okay. Well, I am not a property owner downtown, but I personally am a strong believer in a strong uptown or downtown. I have the opportunity to travel a lot throughout South Dakota and neighboring states as well as other parts of the country, and inevitably a lot of those communities, most of those communities, have had a revitalization of their older uptown, downtown area. And speaking on our behalf, those are the areas that we go to. We enjoy going to them. We really do. The question then becomes, how do we do this? That's really what the question is in my mind. When I've spoke to individuals now over the last couple days that have been in opposition to this, and I've heard their concerns, and I got to say that I agree with them. I don't like the idea of being taxed or taxing somebody without knowing very specifically, in this case, where those dollars are coming, where those dollars are going to be used specifically. I also think that I have a lot of questions on this whole urban renewal thing, that it's hard for me to say whether I agree or disagree with it based on a lot of questions that I have. I've never been too involved with it. It's kind of on the fringes, and usually it's once a year when we have this conversation. I think when I see the amount of people that are here that are opposed to this, I find it very difficult to say this is a good thing, because somewhere along the line we have got to come together and decide it's a good thing. Because if we don't, then all we're going to have is 90% of the people opposed to it, 10% of the business owners or the property owners that are for it. Somebody brought it up to me today, and I guess I've never thought about it. He says, the more money that I invest in my building and my property, the more tax I got to pay, not just on your property taxes, but on the urban renewal tax. He said, so I invest in my business, and it's helping, and my money's going to somebody else's business. So one of my questions is, I know that urban renewal districts are allowed by state statute, I believe. Is that right, Matt? But is the method of taxation defined, or is that up to us? Do you know?
I do not know the answer to that without looking at
I think we've got to wipe the slate clean, and we have got to regroup to determine whether the urban renewal district and what it is a useful tool for us here in Watertown. I've had some people that have showed me their business, and they said, explain to me how I benefit from this. Why am I in the urban renewal district? I can't answer that question because I don't know how the urban renewal district boundaries ever was originated. But if I was some of these people that have talked to me, I would look at it and say, my answer to them is, I really don't know how you're going to benefit. Because it's either their type of their business or it's their location that isn't going to benefit from some of the things that we've talked about. So, Kay, you brought up about having public meetings, and I think they have to be, Vanessa, I commend you guys for all the work that you're doing. It's not easy. You got to feel like you're pushing a rope up a hill. But I think we've got to regroup, and we've got to do it together. And I think some type of community meetings that are outside of the normal urban renewal district board meetings, similarly to what we did for all the meetings we had publicly when we were going to try to determine what our building was going to be for the wellness facility. It was an invite. We had them at Lake Area Tech, and we had all kinds of people there at different meetings. And maybe that's the type of thing that we have to do. But as we sit here today, I cannot support the tax that has been proposed here today for those reasons. So,
Councilman Albertson.
I served on the Urban Renewal Board for years, and I know what they're going against in that serving on that board. It really is a real thankless position, because you want to do the best for the entire downtown, but how do you do that
we had the tax at one time, and then we felt like a lot of people were really unhappy because, as Mike said, a lot of people didn't know how they were being served. Personally, I think the mayor has hit on what I believe, and that's that. And I can't imagine you could ever make a district out of Watertown, but I believe I should pay to go downtown, to be in the uptown renewal process myself. Now, of course, somebody can say, well, then go give them some money. But I don't think that's the point. I think we all should I think we should all pay 0.375 then to bring renewal to our community. Everybody will say the uptown is the heart of the community. But I don't know if taxing a few, when all the rest of us then get a chance to go use it, is really the answer. I don't really want to put this off, but I think community meetings to see how we could do that, and so we would all be a part of it. I think we're all a part of the community center. I think we're all going to be a part of the softball fields, but the charrettes was a great stepping stone there, and I don't think we dare forget that uptown was a major area. I think we all need to figure out how we can pay for it, and not just a few of our patrons, because there are arguments all over for people that I've had several people with empty buildings tell me, if I can't rent out my building, and now I'm going to come back with a tax on it, and I could argue, well, let's get this person in to help fill the buildings, but isn't it all of our jobs to do that? And I would like to see this not pass tonight, but come back in the city's lap and have us do something, just as the mayor suggested.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Vilhar?
Just a couple comments. I agree with you, and I think it's something that we as a community should all bear the cost on, whether it's working to the budget or somehow being assessed. But I think too it's something that we as a community all should bear the cost on. I applaud the effort of the Urban Renewal Board. I guess I definitely want to see better communication, whether it's community meetings or your Urban Renewal Board meetings, more input there, because it is a thankless job. I mean, what you folks are going through, I applaud that, but it's tough when you don't get any feedback until a meeting like this comes upon us.
Exactly.
Also, I guess what concerns me is if we were to pass this and we hire someone to bring them on board, we're going to have to go through this every year, and that position is going to be at the whims of the council each year. I sure wouldn't want to be in that person's shoes if I knew it depended upon 10 people's decisions here every year to make that decision. So I think it's something that we as a community need to support, but I've got enough feedback from people prior to this meeting. A lot of you made your points loud and clear tonight too, that I support the concept, the idea, but I can't support this tax being assessed on a relatively few number of people in the downtown area.
Thank you, Glenn. Adam?
I just got a couple of points to make here. I've sat on that board before for quite a few years. The dollar amount that you guys are talking about, it really is a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of work that needs to be done to the downtown area. When the alley project went through, it was a huge dollar amount, and a combination between the city, utilities, everyone got together because they redid plumbing, they redid the electrical. I mean, it was a huge change, and you see some of the buildings that are around there afterwards. So what Nancy has said about, once it gets cleaned up, the rest of the buildings around it tend to do the same thing. As far as parking, there's like 9 parking lots in the downtown area. They're not always well marked, but there are 9 public parking lots. Sometimes they seem like they're private, but they're public. And I don't disagree with it. I owned a building uptown for 6 years. It's never fun to pay any taxes. Is it something that we can do? I think we have to make a commitment as a community and as a council that whatever you decide, you have to live with it. I mean, it is what it is. If the downtown area needs to be revitalized, and it does, and I think all of us would agree to that, there are areas of concern with that, with our downtown and empty buildings, lack of businesses in there. It's not up to the city to bring businesses in. At the same time, we have to make it where people want to come to our downtown area. So it is a less expensive route to get into a business or a building than going on the highway or going on to the major thoroughfares. You also lose, the amount of traffic that goes by. So there are some trade-offs to it. So I think we have to realize that there are positives, there are negatives to both of those. Now, how we go about doing it, we've done the charrette, which was open to the public. I know there was a lot of people that came to it. The streetscape has been done. There's a plan that's in place. Is it thoroughly, fully thought through? No. It's a working document, however you want to look at it. So we have to look at that, make a plan, figure out, top priorities, and then how do we go forward with that? Whether that's a partnership between Urban Renewal District and the city, or the city takes it on, and I'm okay with that. Whatever we plan, we have to go with it. So just keep that in mind as we go through budgets and we go through things like that, and we're talking about constantly cutting the budget. If we want to have these things done, we need to come up with the money one way or another. Now, whether that's everyone gets assessed more or we have additional taxes that go into it, they're all repercussions for it. I mean, it all sounds great when we say that, I need to pay part of that as well. And I'm okay with that. But just remember, when tax time comes, we're all paying into that. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Adam. You have to talk into the microphone so it's in the record. Could you state your name again, please?
I thought that's what you guys were supposed to do, is draw businesses to town. Isn't that why the mayor goes out on these different ventures and talks to different businesses, trying to draw them towards Watertown?
We do, but we can't tell a business.
Oh, I'm not asking you to tell a business.
We want you to go here. We want your business here.
But I got the impression from him that that's not your guys' job to bring businesses to town.
We can't make
Isn't that
people.
What he said? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then that.
Right, but you're misinterpreting it. I mean, we do put a lot of money into marketing. We put hundreds of thousands of dollars into drawing businesses to Watertown.
And that's the
every
name of the
year.
game.
We do that. That is our job. They approve it in the budget. As an individual, though, we cannot say whether a business goes in or not. That's not our.
No.
Let me make the comment.
Okay.
I personally cannot make someone come to town. That is not my job. As a council member, my job isn't to get somebody to move into that business. I'm not saying that we don't want businesses to come to town. I'm just saying that we're not fully responsible for businesses coming here. There's a partnership that has to be done. Okay. We have a Conventions and Visitors Bureau. We have development company. We have that. It's a partnership.
But that isn't what I got from.
And I apologize if I came off wrong because that is not what I meant. I'm by no means saying that I don't want businesses to come to town.
Rest assured, a very healthy share of your tax dollars go toward marketing our community and getting businesses to come here and open their doors. Anyone else?
Mayor, if I might.
Councilman Bueller? Councilman Bueller has the floor. And then you can come up and...
No, I just wanted to say, I think I agree with that there are businesses that would not benefit near as much as others would with this tax. I do think it's unfair from that standpoint. I did time as well on the Urban Renewal Board some years ago. Let me rephrase that. I served on the Urban Renewal Board. But what I know, I don't want anybody to misinterpret that. But I will say that what I do recall when I did, we had a director that was a part-time director, and that is where we got our continuity. That's where we had somebody that was looking after this week after week, that was keeping everybody on task, that was trying to get to raise funds, work with the building facades, that negotiated and worked with all of the people involved with that whole process and the board members.
That went away, and I think that was a mistake. I don't think I would support this tax. I think that we do need to step back, and I think some of the other councilmen alluded to this as well. We need to step back, reassess this, and I do think we need to take it on as a greater responsibility of the city overall in how we approach this and how we fund it. Because I don't think anyone would disagree on this council that we want to focus on this. We do want to improve opportunities in our downtown district. And so I personally would not support this tax. I don't think it's right. Somebody said taxation without representation. I think it kind of is a little bit, because a lot of folks would benefit from these activities more so than others would by quite a bit. And again, the other part of this, the other component of this is that there are a lot of folks out there who own these businesses, but they don't run them. They don't have, and they've got vacant buildings that have value to them, but they're being taxed on that. So I don't think it's the right thing to go in that direction. I think we as a city need to focus on it and try to fund this as a city aggregate. That's my feeling.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. If you have a question for a council member, I would say go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah,
but
Jeff,
the comment period is closed.
Yeah, Jeff Otto, I guess I'd like to know how many people, if it got passed, would be, I mean, of course, once urban renewal passes, it's not voluntary anymore, right? There's salaries to be paid. I mean, all these people are going to be paid. Are they volunteers all the time? Or?
No, Mayor, if I could, we're looking at.
Okay.
If I might just add,
I just didn't know.
Volunteers.
What we did before, and I'll just point this out for some of the folks that don't know this, we had a part-time person, and to me, it worked out great. I thought that was enough, but you got to have somebody running the show. And you got to have somebody stand on top of things, and that's where I think we need to go. So we keep moving forward instead of just we stop, nothing happens. We did the charrette, and we lost a lot of our forward movement with this whole project. So,
right. Well, I misunderstood, and I thank everybody for volunteering, I guess.
Yeah, it is one of the hardest working boards that we have. Councilman Lawlin?
Jeff, I was just going to tell you, that was a part-time job. They're basically what they did is kept a running list of buildings that are available, what they were looking to put in there, how kind of square footage, as well as, I think, rent. Does that sound right, Kate?
Well, the whole thing is that
No,
that part-time position was a shared position between the Watertown Business Association and the Urban Renewal Board. Right. They helped to plan promotions, and they helped to keep the communication of the landlord with different people that are looking for places in there. And, you know, there again, I'm going to say on behalf of the WBA, we are more than willing to sit down and try to work out something so we could have somebody in place that would work on both ends.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the council have a comment?
Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
Okay. We have a motion to approve and enact the assessment.
We have to vote on.
Oh.
There need to be a vote on the motion to call the question.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question. Motion by Vielhauer, second by Bueller. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Okay, now I will call the question. The question is to enact the tax. Approval of the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. Motion fails. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask one question on the topic, if I can? And I don't know who said it, but maybe Vanessa did, maybe. I think the Urban Renewal Board or the district has some type of ongoing maintenance obligation. Is that correct, Uptown? What does that involve, Vanessa, and what kind of dollars is that? Just for that purpose of they have some financial obligation, right?
Yeah, a lot of that was actually transferred over to the general fund last year when the assessment did not go through. So our the main concerns were flowers, and you as a council had decided that you guys were going to pay for the flowers. we went from 16,000 to 2,500. So that's my concern with the assessment not going through, is that it went to a later date, and I would encourage you all to show up again when we talk about how we're going to fund downtown projects as a group. But the follow through wasn't there, and we had shortages.
Okay, but
the
today,
general fund,
today the city's covering any expenses that you did have. Because I think there was something with the restroom, public restroom, and something else, right?
Right. Yes.
And we're covering that. So, setting aside projects, you don't have any ongoing financial requirement of you. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is number 7, second reading of ordinance number 18-15, amending chapter 21.80 regarding temporary and exempt signage. And we'll just give a minute for the crowd noise to die down. Okay, I am going to ask for a motion for approval of the ordinance, and then we'll have some discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Danforth, second by Councilman Lallam. And Brandy, would you like to explain this?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So this goes back to us. We formed subcommittees, and we were working to clean up our sign code as far as the exempt signage and the temporary signage were concerned. So the exempt signage now, we brought it into compliance as far as being regulated by content neutrality. And then the temporary signage, we changed that to stay consistent with not allowing signs in the public boulevard. So that still is in place, and no signs will be allowed. And then we did add the caveat, though, where if it was not practical for you to place it on your private property, that you could approach the building official to place it within the boulevard, and he would have to give you that. Okay.
All right, so I will open the public hearing and see if anyone in the audience would like to speak about this issue. Please come forward, state your name and your comment.
Hi, my name is Val Gronke, and I have a couple concerns about this ordinance. My number one concern is, as either a property owner or a business owner, that if for some reason putting a sign at a specific location that is required back past the boulevard so many feet in, that it's actually going to be preventing the business from being a function. I work for Lonnie Davis, and we have the storage facilities in town. And by moving a sign to where it would have to be, the sign would actually sit right in front of the storage units, and we would not be able to open the doors, nor would my customers be able to get their stuff in and out. So we were told we were allowed to move it over to a corner, which would be in front of my office, but that happens to be right where my drop box is, where everybody would drop the money and stuff like that when nobody's at the facility. So that eliminates them from an evening drop. To move it over at the other end, we have a business over there that rents that whole particular spot. So we can't put it there because then he can't get traffic in and out of the doorways. And they have big overhead doors to drive trucks and stuff like that in. So our biggest concern was to say, okay, we have a sign that is grandfathered in, and we just want to add to that sign. And they're saying, no, we can't do that. I think that as a person that owns the business, that my boss would feel that this would solve his dilemma by being able to add on to his sign that has been denied. And we would like to make sure that everybody is aware that it's not that we're asking to put a whole new sign up in that area. We just want to add to it. We want to bring a height up above it. Very simple. We can't come back what you guys are stating we need to do in order to put the sign on the property.
This ordinance that we're looking at tonight is the ordinance for temporary and exempt signs. It's not for permanent.
Right. And we've had temporary signs that we have put up to solve that problem, and we're not allowed to do that either.
And that's something that you guys could request to be heard by the Board of Adjustment if you were asking for a variance for your permanent sign.
And I have asked the city for the adjustments number so I could contact them, and I am not allowed that.
Oh, it's a public.
The names are, but how to contact them is not.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
882-6201. And then you can talk to Jill.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
That answered my biggest problem.
Good deal.
Thank you.
She is a good worker.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, then I will close the public hearing and entertain some discussion. Anybody have any questions or comments? Councilman Danforth?
Probably a couple weeks ago, I was contacted by a couple different individuals regarding some signage issues out by the Herberger's area. And I think the response that I got was that the city we don't make the requirements or enforce the, help me out here, Mayor, I think we don't set the requirements or enforce those along, in this case, a jurisdictional area that would be for the state highway.
Our ordinance applies all throughout our city limits, but normally the state DOT is more stringent than we are. And even when we allowed signs in the right-of-way, DOT never has. And they normally pick them up as soon as they're put there. So it just surprised me that they were there. But I did direct the code enforcement officer to, and he said he was just there, and they were gone.
Yep.
But they come back.
My reason in bringing that up is so
miraculously.
Can we be more stringent than the state highway requirements?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we can set them.
Sure.
And
no, our ordinance applies.
Okay.
It's just that they've been more stringent than we have in the past.
Okay.
And it's normally not necessary for us to have to enforce along the state highways because they do.
Okay.
They have been for a long time.
All right. Well, I wanted to clarify that just for my own purpose here, because, boy, if we didn't have the requirements or couldn't enforce it, that's where a lot of our problems are. And I thought, oh,
we can't.
It seems like
they're pretty strict about what
good.
you do in their right of way.
All right. Thank you.
It's normally above and beyond what we allow. Anyone else? Councilman Bueller?
Yes, Brandy, I have a question. Where does this go next from a content neutral based ordinance? Where does this go from here?
This brings our exempt and temporary signage into compliance with being content neutral, but we're not done with the sign code yet. We still need to look into permanent signage and billboards and creating language that's consistent with being content neutral.
This is just one part of it. It's a big, hairy issue. Lots of facets to it. And the Supreme Court was very clear on this part of it, not so much with other parts of the code for whatever reason. I don't know why. Any other comments? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
The next item is number 8, second reading of ordinance number 18-16, amending section 21.0201 regarding membership requirements of the Plan Commission. So I will look for a motion and second for approval, and then we'll do discussion.
So
Moved by Councilman Y.
Second.
Second by Councilman Vilhauer. Heath, do you want to talk about this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just long enough to defer to my colleague Brandy, who has more of the details on this as well.
Thank you. Brandy.
Thank you, Mayor and Heath. So this ordinance amendment will allow for one Plan Commission member and Board of Adjustment member to be to live within the joint jurisdiction area, which is a 3-mile radius around city limits. And then also it will allow for 2 alternatives to the Plan Commission, which is consistent with how the Board of Adjustment is arranged currently.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak about this? See none, I will close the public hearing. Any questions or comments by council? Councilman Danforth?
Mayor, I understand the basis for this. No, I'm not talking about the 2 alternates. I'm talking about having the representation from outside the city. We have city boundaries for a reason. We have county, we have city, we have municipal or townships, and there's a reason for that. The decisions that are often made at these levels involve city proper within our city limits. And I think the people that are on those boards and representing them, and especially in this case, I think should be and must be within the city limits. I don't think that we should be changing it. I think it sounds good to do that. I don't see the value in doing that. I feel strongly that this involves the city of Watertown, and the representation should come from the city of Watertown.
Okay, I respect your opinion, but I will point out that these boards do weigh in on issues in the fringe area that we're talking about expanding this to, and it's up to the mayor to appoint members. There's no requirement to appoint someone. It gives us the ability to appoint someone who represents that area, which would have no representation otherwise. And this is something other communities do. And I don't think it's a bad idea. It gives me the flexibility, and you as the council, to confirm those appointments, to have that area outside the city limits but within our joint jurisdiction to be represented, because that Plan Commission does make calls on, we review plats in that area, and we look at subdivisions. It's issues that affect that area. They do have authority. So,
Mayor, don't we have a joint jurisdictional agreement with the county? And for those items within that joint jurisdiction, don't we have a joint body of people that can address issues that would occur out in that joint jurisdictional area?
We do,
then why do we need somebody?
If I'm wrong, but when we change the regulations, that board would come into play. But there are routine items that don't go to that board specifically that would go to both the city and the county. For if it's in the joint jurisdiction, the Plan Commission will approve the plat.
To me, then, one person from out there isn't the solution. The solution is the joint jurisdictional structure that we already have. Most of the issues that we deal within already what are within the city limits of Watertown. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why, for those issues, we would have somebody that is not a Watertown resident, City of Watertown resident, albeit they're a community member, but I believe that that is the intent of that board, and I think that in the best interest of the city, that's what it should be. Any joint jurisdictional issues should be dealt with in a joint jurisdictional fashion. If that's where the issues are, then we should find and use that mechanism, and we should not be expanding our board composition unnecessarily. And I think that's what we're doing. I think we're accommodating here. That's what it feels like, in my opinion. I I understand others may do it. I'm just looking at it from a Watertown standpoint, from my view, and I'm thinking it seems unnecessary. We already have a structure that if there's any issues to address it, that's the joint jurisdictional body that exists, that's already been defined. And my recommendation would be that we hold to the current requirement. That's just where I'm at.
All right, thank you. Councilman Vilhar?
Brandy, I've got a question that something you said just a minute ago sparked in my mind now. You said this deals with both the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment. I mean, the ordinance that we've got in front of us just refers to Planning Commission. I realize they're one and the same group for the most part, but I mean, are we including, does our ordinance include the Board of Adjustment?
This is for the Plan Commission, and the Board of Adjustment has 2 alternates, and this also puts those alternates into the Plan Commission, where now they're not. They just leave the meeting when the Board of Adjustment, it's the same people, but they're 2 separate boards. They meet one right after the other.
But I'm confused. I mean, looking at the specific case we've got right now, will this individual be part of the Board of Adjustment then too? Or the alternates?
The Plan Commission, the membership of the Plan Commission is the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, so we don't have to clarify that in our ordinance. That's understood. I mean, I'm asking out of ignorance.
Correct. Our ordinance states that the membership of the Plan Commission is the Board of Adjustment, and this modifies the membership of the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you.
And we don't have to have, this does not require it, reiterate that. This gives us the option. And the council, if the mayor tries to appoint someone that's in the joint jurisdiction area and the council doesn't think that's appropriate, they would have the ability not to confirm that member. And actually, I'm looking at doing this for the airport board as well. I think these are, it's good to loosen it up, but you entitled to your.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Do we have anybody within the city of Watertown that, if they so choose, could be placed on the county's Plan Commission or Board of Adjustments?
I think so, yes. I think so. And I mean, it's.
Which it's a different scenario because it's Watertown is the county.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Again, I look at it, we already have a structure to deal with this. That's where I'm coming from. So we have boundaries for a reason. If we don't have boundaries and we don't have governmental structures, then get rid of all of them and let's just have one. We do have a reason for our boundaries. And that's where I'm coming from.
I think there could be value to it with it being within the joint jurisdiction, having that one spokesperson as far as our comp plan and what we see as developing next and annexations and zoning, and maybe having a voice for where they might be at on a certain situation. A lot of the times they are petitioning to annex and zone, but sometimes there are, forced annexations. They don't happen often, but that would be maybe one valuable.
Yeah.
But Brandy, they're going to be dealing with issues that are throughout our city. They aren't going to only deal with issues that are in the joint jurisdictional area. If that's what the case was, they could have a vote or a say in that area, go for it. But they're gonna sit on the Plan Commission and Board of Adjustments for somebody that wants a variance on a garage in town, or they want something over here in town. It has nothing to do with the joint jurisdictional area.
But they are a person to whom our regulations apply. When it comes to planning and zoning regulations, they apply in that area, and that's what they're weighing in on, is planning and zoning issues. Councilman Bueller?
The only thing I would just want to point out is the frequency at which the joint jurisdiction group meets is, when's the last time they met?
They're having one meeting come up, but it's been probably 3 months.
Yeah, I just, on the side of the mayor on this one, I think the fact that we've got somebody from that part of the county that's in proximity to the city, they're going to be more involved in week to week with what's going on. So I think that from that standpoint, that could be a benefit to us, I think.
And that area, our regulations for planning and zoning apply to what they do. So they're being represented by having a member serve on the Plan Commission. Anyone else? Okay, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Albertson?
Aye.
Bueller?
Aye.
Danforth?
Nay.
Okay. Lallam?
Aye.
Manti is absent. Roby is absent. Solom? Aye. Thorson? Aye. Vilhauer?
Aye.
And Y?
Aye.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 for, 2 opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is number 9, first reading of ordinance number 18-17 for the 2019 city budget appropriation. And I will let Kristen talk about that.
Okay, thank you. This is the first reading, so no action on this one tonight. I won't go into too much detail because I think we've been through the budget for quite a few hours here. So the ordinance that you do see before you that has all of the changes that were made during those budget hearings. So just so you're aware, everything that was discussed and had a motion is now into the ordinance. There was 3 items that I do want to point out that were kind of very minor, but they weren't discussed at the budget hearings, but they do need to be put into the ordinance. There was a formula error in the city hall expenditure. It just didn't carry down. It was $320, so it's not a large amount, but I wanted everybody to be aware. I also did put in, Dee Dee at the library had contacted me that the library board had made the motion to put in the $25,000 into the library fines fund. So I did increase the library fines fund budget with the library board's approval of that. And then the only other change that I did make is I increased the GO bond revenue by $4,000, and that was just on the revenue side. So, and that's that part of the tax that is on the ordinance. So other than that, there was no changes if there's any questions, but this will be the first reading, and then the second reading will be at the next meeting, and then it'll go into effect for 2019.
Right. Any questions? Councilman Vilhauer?
Kristen, you and I have had this conversation before, and I can't reference the page, but it's a page where we come to our total appropriations and then capital outlay accumulations and then total appropriations, capital outlay accumulations. You know where I'm at. Okay, will you explain to us briefly what the capital outlay accumulations at 12/31/18? That's a significant number. Can you explain to us what that is?
I can explain that. Okay, so when we had our last meeting on, I think it was the 30th, and we talked about our capital improvement, our long-term plan. The reason that is important is because what that does is it establishes those big projects that we're going to do. What we do is we go back, and then for 5 years, we kind of lay out those projects, and then we slowly are accumulating those dollars to be set aside. So when the project comes, your goal is that you have that cash set aside, and it's kind of it keeps rotating. So as the project comes forward, it drops off and the new projects come in. So you're always kind of rotating the dollars for it, but it lets us kind of set aside. We don't restrict our capital outlay like some do. We actually just have it more as an assigned, but this does kind of give us the dollars for our future projects. So that's what that is. So you'll see it in the general fund, the park and rec, and then the capital improvement fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Danforth?
So, Kristen, if I understand this correctly, so the work we did on the longer-term CIP is what you're referring to as a set-aside of dollars, an accumulation of dollars towards that. What happens when, let's say, a fairly large number that has been accounted for within that either gets kicked out, never done, or moved out? What do we do with those dollars? They just sit there? in this reserve or this?
Because of the way that we do it, it's kind of a rolling amount. So if the project would go away, then it would come off. I have kind of a whole spreadsheet where the first year and then the second year, the dollars are kind of accumulated for a longer period of time. If the project goes away, then that would obviously change the money that's set aside. So it doesn't stay in place. If the projects change, they shift and the dollars shift as well. So no, if a big project would come off of our long-term capital plan, that dollar would decrease.
So as long as it's still an active item,
it's on the plan.
You'll have some accumulation taking place.
That is correct.
And those dollars then, if something gets pulled, goes back into our reserve, just general reserve?
Yeah, it would just be back into the unreserved fund balance.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Kristen. Item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance number 18-18, amending chapter 2.01 regarding day and time restrictions on the sale of alcoholic beverages. And this is another first reading. Matt, you want to explain this a little bit?
Yes, I can do that. Thanks, Mayor. This follows from our discussion last week, or the previous council meeting previous committee meeting, where we discussed that the state, as of July 1st this year, basically reversed the way they allow for days and times of consuming and selling selling liquor. So previously, the state said that every day except that liquor sales were allowed every day except Memorial Day, Sundays, and Christmas, unless the city specifically allowed for it. So what we had done in the past was we allowed for it on Memorial Day, we allowed for it on Sunday from 11 until 10, and of course on Christmas it was silent because the state did not allow it on Christmas. As of July 1st, they reversed that, where now it's allowed every day of the year unless we decide to restrict it. And so what this ordinance will do, essentially it'll get rid of the Memorial Day reference in our ordinance because that falls in line with what we had been doing previously. The state will just allow for those sales on Memorial Day. It will expand the hours of operation on Sundays from you can sell now previous to 11 o'clock and after 12 a.m. So basically from 7 a.m. to 12 or 2 a.m. on Sundays. Now, one thing that Kristen pointed out, which I was not aware of as we were going through this, was that it's not spelled out in ordinance, but council a few years ago did require that Sunday sales obtain a $200 license, which I was not aware of because it's not spelled out in ordinance, but it was done by a council action. And so this would, the way this is worded right now, get rid of that requirement. So.
All right. If you have any concerns about that, this would be a good time to express them. Or you can contact Matt later. All right, item number 11 is another first reading. First reading of ordinance number 18-19, amending zoning district boundaries by zoning Eastwood's 20th edition to R1 Single Family Residential District. And Heath, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I can generally talk about this. Of course, Brandy's here as well for specific questions, but we have this first reading for the rezoning of the next phase of the Eastwoods edition, and it would be rezoned to R1 Single Family Residential. We have worked with the developer in review of their zoning information and also their parkland dedication that went to the Parks Board last week. And Brandy was at that meeting if you have any questions regarding that. But anyway, just before you tonight, being the zoning portion of that development and the next phase of it, I'm glad to answer any questions council might have.
Any questions? Councilman Lallam?
Just an FYI, the name is spelled wrong in the first one there. It's Joy Nelson. So I don't know if this is going into full on, but
Joy Meslin.
yes.
Where's that?
That was my bad, not Heath's.
Councilman Vilhauer?
Randy, I've got a question. Why is a park dedication quite a bit more than what the required amount would need to be?
So, Heath, are you all right with?
Yeah, please go ahead, Brandy. Yeah.
So this was part of a preliminary plan which included Eastwood's 18th as well, and there was always assumed, or it was always planned that the park land dedication would be in the second phase, which is now Eastwood's 20th, which is being proposed, and that will be, a plat will be required for this annexation and zoning as well. But I'm not exactly, the 2.2 acres is what was accepted in 2015, and so then that's what will be brought with this phase. And I'm not exactly sure why, but there is detention included within that land area. So it's all going to be open space.
Maybe it's, I'm not questioning the overall plan, but, do we want the extra 0.7 acres? Just more maintenance on our part, and, I guess when I look at the number, just pose that question that, why are we taking, or why is there more being offered than what needs to be?
Well, and historically we have taken over detention ponds within residential developments. So we would, after they're installed and brought up to city standards per our development agreements. So in essence, we would be taking it over anyway. They'll just be grouped together.
And Brandy, do you know, have you done the math? If you extract the detention area out of that park area, does the parkland contribution match more closely to what it should fall in line with?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're for sure getting our 1.5 acres of undisturbed park area.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Item number 12 is authorization for the mayor to sign an intergovernmental agreement with various counties for E911 telephone service. And I'll look for a motion and second for approval. Moved by Councilman Bueller, second by Councilman Danforth, and Captain McMahon is here to tell us about this.
Yes, briefly, over the past 20 years, or nearly 20 years, the City of Watertown has provided 911 services to nearby surrounding governmental agencies. And our current agreement will expire on December 31st of this year. And we have proposed a 2-year agreement at 100% of their surcharge rates. And that agreement would take place January 1st of 2019 and run through December 31st of 2020.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Lallam?
Is this just a continuation of what we had in the past? It really hasn't changed anything.
It really is a continuation of last year's agreement. Changed some dates, and
is it two-year common, or is that what we've done in the past as well?
2-year agreement, yes.
Okay.
Councilman Danforth?
I'm going to ask this question, not that I'm recommending this.
Okay.
But are the fees that we receive restricted to the 100%, or are there additional fees that, if we wanted, could be added?
We are receiving 100% of what the counties receive from the Department of Revenue.
Which is from the cell phones?
Yes.
Okay,
cell phones, landlines,
right,
anything
so,
that's taxed.
So what I'm saying is, if we wanted, and hopefully the radio and the paper won't put this in there, but if we wanted, could we, this is a curiosity question, could we say we need that, but we need $2,000 more?
Yes, anything above the 100% that we're asking would come from the general fund of the counties.
Okay, but we could.
Sure.
That's what your look tells me.
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to know that answer. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Albertson.
Scott, is there anybody else that wants in on this? I know we're filled to the limit probably in terms of being able to handle it, but do you have other requests?
Currently, we do not have any other requests, and currently the state is continuing to progress with its next gen 911 project. And as that project continues, we're seeing that some have chosen to stay on their own, such as Roberts County, Marshall County, smaller counties. But at some point in time, as next gen continues to move forward, we may receive additional requests for us to offer services to other counties. But at this point in time, I would say that there isn't any interest at this time.
Thank you. No? Okay. Anyone else? We're to look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 13 is consideration of the recommendation by the Airport Board to select Mead and Hunt Architects for professional services for the design and construction of Watertown Airport Terminal Building. And I'll look for a motion and second for approval. Moved by Y, and second by Lallam. And I see Todd Sires here to tell us about this.
Good evening. We had 3 architectural firms put in for the selection. TSP, Mead Hunt, and JLG. We had a team for the rubric, actually Colin Paulson, Heath Von Eye, Don Roby, and myself. As the mayor was out of town, unfortunately she couldn't get involved with this one, but hopefully she'll be involved after this. But total score of 880 points, and Heath can maybe explain more about a rubric than I can. This is my first time around with this, so. TSP came in at 742, Mead Hunt 799, and JLG 633 out of a total score of 880 points. So the airport board has recommended Mead Hunt for the architectural selection.
Thank you. And Heath, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the details behind this this selection process, I don't know, might be new to some of the councilmen, might not, but it's strictly a qualification-based selection process because of the federal funds that are tied to this potential program. And what that stems back to is essentially the Brooks Act adopted in 1972 at the federal level regarding qualification-based selection for engineering and architectural services when federal monies are tied to projects. And of course, with the airport terminal being heavily tied to the U.S. DOT through the FAA funding program mechanisms that they have in place, this is kind of a hand-me-down requirement, so to speak, as far as being qualification-based only. So the reason that's somewhat new is that locally we would typically look at a fee in association with these proposals. We were not able to do that in this case. This is a fee-neutral qualification-based selection of the architect. And so we do have a rubric to assess those qualifications, and that's the scoring that Todd mentioned that we went through as a panel. It's a max 220 points per person. That's why he gets the 880 times the 4 panel members that were part of this selection process. And through that meeting and discussions and the scoring, we came up with the Mead Hunt scoring the highest based on those qualifications and the rubric that was provided in part through the federal program as well, South Dakota DOT.
Right, and a rubric is just a fancy name for a table where you keep track of your scores.
This was the first time I've ever done a qualifications-based.
Yeah,
is what I
yeah.
was,
Right,
so
right.
I've done others, but never just a strict qualification.
Right, and I think people, when they see one, they instantly understand it. And when you say the word rubric, I think more than half of the population gets a funny look on their face, like, I gotta find a dictionary. It's just a simple tool for weighing out. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Vilhauer?
I guess we shouldn't look a gift horse at mouth because the federal government is paying most of these projects, but to me, maybe it's just indicative of the way they do business. That fees are not part of the discussion is kind of beyond me.
Yeah, we usually do a lot in our rubrics, at least a small percentage of the points to be toward the fee, because if your fee is outrageous, it doesn't matter how good your qualifications are.
So I can maybe explain the process a little further. This is the first process. We need to, as a group in the city of Watertown, need to select an engineering firm. The next step in this process will be the actual fee-based structure, and we will bring that back to you, and the federal government has to accept that fee as well.
Right.
They can't just charge whatever they want to charge.
Right.
So this could get thrown back out if they
Right.
charge an astronomical amount that's not contingent to what they see fit.
Right, and they'll have very stringent guidelines for what's a reasonable fee, and they'll follow them. So it's good. Councilman Danforth?
So what does this mean in regards to, what are we actually going to get? They're going to actually design, assuming their fee is accepted, they're actually going to design a airport terminal for us.
Correct.
And even though today we don't know, that I'm aware of, that we actually have funding for this airport terminal, correct?
We do. The federal government has it on their CIP. And this is where it gets really confusing, as I have a federal government CIP and then the city's CIP we had last week for long-term. The federal government pretty much locks up 5 years out. And we're into 21, 22, and 23 right now for terminal design, and then construct 22, 23. So the federal government does have this on their radar, and they are finding federal funding for this. But if something were to happen where they could not find federal funding for this, we would not do this project. But up until that point, anything that we've done so far, such as this $1 billion supplemental program that we're going to try and go for October 31st is our deadline to get that in, we have to have all these steps in place, and anything we do is reimbursable later on. We'll just tie it to another grant.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So if we're on their list and funds are expended, first of all, do we pay those, then get reimbursed?
Correct.
Okay, and so that's an issue. Kristen, looking out for you. And then the next question is, what happens if that funding doesn't come through from the federal government? Are they still obligated to reimbursing us whatever costs we have into it then? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going this road alone. Other questions or comments? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Todd. Item 14 is consideration of bids for the front wheel loader for the street department. Look for a motion second for approval. Moved by Councilman Vilhauer, second by Councilman Bueller. Rob Bainan, Street Superintendent, is here to tell us about it.
Thank you, Mayor. On August 23rd, we went out to bids for a new loader, and TransSource was the low bidder, who met all the specifications, and they actually came in at $159,476, and they were giving us a trade-in allowance of $20,024. So actually, they were quite a bit under all the other, under Titan Machinery of Aberdeen, RDO of Sioux Falls, and Butler Machinery of Sioux Falls, which we were expecting those four, which are very competitive generally in government bids. So I'm asking basically that the council would approve the low bidder tonight, TransSource. Our budget amount was $145,000. This was money that was carried over last year. The reason we're off a little bit here, basically, that we were talking the other night about heavy equipment and a long-term budget and stuff, and how you can have a catastrophic breakdown. We were budgeted at $145,000, and we were expecting, if our loader hadn't had a broke-down transmission, we'd be I won't be asking for more money tonight, other than more than $145,000. Our loader would have been worth more. But anyway, where we're at is we need an additional $14,476. We do have two budget lines within our budget, in our street budget, where we would be able to pull that money out of, which is the hot box, the asphalt hot box we got earlier this season. Those bids came in quite low compared to what we had been quoted for a budget quote. So there was money remaining in there, and our mowers also came in low on another budget line, which there's remaining dollars there. So I guess I'm asking that we approve council approved the $159,476 and asking for permission to pull out of those two other budget lines to make up the difference that we need. And then the other thing that we would need to do, which I think would take a second motion, is after the first of the year, if the second reading goes through of the approval of the budget for 19, we will have another loader that we can purchase at that time. And I've requested $195,000 for that loader, but the buy price through TransSource for without a trade-in is $179,500. So that's well under what I've requested for a budget amount. So basically what we'd be looking at is just approval to be able to buy off of this bid straight out after the first year. So
how long is the bid price good?
Well, we have to be able to buy off of this bid document, and Toby might be able to explain that better, but to be able to buy off of this bid and not have a trade-in, we have to approve the outright, the base bid price. The council would have to approve that.
Or we'd have to rebid it at the time because this won't be good anymore?
Well, this bid's good for a year, but the bid that you're approving would be with a trade-in. We won't have this same trade-in. It'll be gone. The base bid price that everybody is given here, because you have the option right now to just buy this straight out without the trade-in, but I'm recommending we let our trade-in go. They're giving us a good trade-in value for it. This is very good pricing.
Rob, couldn't we? You're kind of losing me there. First of all, it seems odd that we can make an approval of something we don't even have a budget approved for yet. So I don't think that's going to work. But secondly, we have the choice today with what's bid to either go with the base bid or go with the trade-in, correct?
Right. You can go with the base bid or the trade-in.
Okay. So why wouldn't the base bid still be an eligible price with the new 2019 budget?
It would be if we don't trade it in.
Well,
No.
the bid bond will expire, I'm sure. And then we'll have to rebid if the bid bond has expired.
Why, if it's a year? Why do we have to?
We don't keep the bid bond for a year, even if.
But the quote is eligible for a year.
Can I speak to this for a second?
Yep.
Toby Royer, I'm with TransSource Truck and Equipment out of Aberdeen. The way the bid law reads is you have to actually first award both pieces of this. So you have, first portion of it is base bid at 192. Or sorry, that isn't right. This isn't even the right one here. Sorry, 179,500. So that's a base bid just to purchase the machine outright. So we have two parts to the bid. And then the second one is with trade. So in order to purchase off of it, the commission or the council has to first approve of option A and then approve of option B to purchase down the road from it. If it is not awarded today off of this bid, then you will have to rebid it down the road. You're only approving portion A or B, the way the bid law reads.
Option A or B.
Option A or B. And city attorney.
Yeah, I am too. Okay, when we bid the project, we put in for the piece of equipment and then we put in the trade-in allowance, right?
Right.
Our normal way that we've done it is we would bid that out that way, and our normal approval from the council would be to take the bid with the trade-in, and then it would be a total base bid with those two included. So I think I think we need to look at our first thing first. So we're dealing with 2018's budget right now, but that's what you're wanting to do is to accept the trade.
Right.
Correct? Okay, so you're looking at the
$159,476.
Okay, now is in regards to 2019, a bid is only good for 30 days from the time that it's opened. So I don't know if we'd even be able to. The 2019 budget is not approved at this time by law. It's an ordinance. So it's 21 days after the second reading, which isn't until September.
Right. What I'm trying to say, I'm not getting it out there right, is we can buy off of this as long as the vendor agrees off of this bid for up to 1 year. And if you only approve that we want to do the trade-in, that we're trading it in, and $159,000, then that's fine, but you also have to approve that we could, in future bids, buy off of the base price, which is $179,500.
Just because it's awarded today doesn't mean you actually have to purchase today for 2019. But you have to award it to have the option to purchase it in 2019 for your future budget item, if you so choose.
If I could, Rob, speak to this, I do have firsthand knowledge of buying off other government entities' bids. My experience with that was that they wouldn't necessarily have to take action tonight to approve the purchase off of that other government agency bid, but could at the time we want to purchase it into the 2019 fiscal year. Is that not correct?
That's correct, but that's not the point I'm trying to get across. I'm not asking for council approval to buy another loader off of this. I'm asking that you approve this amount in case we want to buy off of this in March of 2019.
And again, I think that action can be taken in March. You'll have the same price that you could bring in front of them based off that other government bid, unless I'm misunderstanding something here.
I believe that this bid expires within 30 days. So it has to be awarded within 30 days. You do not have to purchase off of it, though.
Okay, so I think we need to act on the motion that's on the floor, which is to accept the low bid with the trade-in and purchase this year for $159,476, the loader this year, and that's the motion we have on the floor. And then after that action is done, we can make a motion to accept the low bid without trade-in for future purchase if desired in 2019.
Correct, and actually
And then
the way I've written
we
up
aren't
there,
obligated to. If we wanted to rebid it in 2019, we could. But everybody has bid us a price without a trade-in. Theirs is the best bid, and the bid meets the specs. So while we have the bid bond, we give ourselves the ability to buy it next year if we choose to, or to rebid it if we choose to.
Here's the prices. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that.
So either way, it's the low bid, whether it has a trade-in or not. So we're accepting. We'll take action on the actually awarding the contract, and then we'll approve the bids with this being the low bid if we choose to buy off of it in 2019. And then we have the option. We aren't obligated because we haven't awarded it. We've accepted the bids.
Right, and that's
we'll have to
where I think
otherwise.
I mucked it up. Was I was basically not asking for permission to buy a loader in the 2019 budget. I was just asking to approve the base price that they had on.
If that is the case, we're covered. But I don't know that we have to do that because I know we have the ability to buy off other people's contracts, and we don't have to award or approve their bids while the bid bond is still valid.
Right.
If someone else, if they've made that bid and it's valid for a year, someone else can choose to purchase off of it.
Right. And we have purchased, like the 2 dump trucks we got 2 seasons ago, we did purchase off of another community's bid. So
yeah, Councilman Lallam.
Couldn't we just accept the low bid and then allow for the trade-in? I mean, then we have the low bid accepted, and then the trade-in would just come off of that. I mean, wouldn't that be doing the same thing, or?
No, because that's all done and gone with the issuance. So let's get the first one.
Yeah.
All right,
Are there any more comments about the first action, which is to take the low bid plus the trade-in for $159,476?
And just to be clear, this was in the budget.
Yes, this was in the budget.
2018.
And I mean, with the adjustments that Rob discussed. Yes. All right. Anything else? And we have a motion. Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Okay, and then just to be safe, we could, now that while the bid bond is still valid, accept this bid package that they meet our specs, and we approve of these bids with the low bid being TransSource at $179,500, and have a motion to approve the bid tab, and then next year, if we want to buy off of it, we can. I think we could anyway, but just in case we can't.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I think my confusion was coming into play where I thought that the 179 number was another government entity's bid that was already out there. So I was confused on that part. If that were the case, that's where my comments were coming into play, to where we wouldn't have to take action tonight. We just purchase off that bid at a future date when we're into the fiscal year, which I think would make Kristen a lot more comfortable.
I actually never.
How do other entities use it at a later date?
Well, I don't think that you do. You do have the opportunity to buy off of a state bid, another city's bid, anything like that. We are open to that all the time without the bidding process. My understanding was that once a bid is opened, you have 30 days to award it or reject it, or, well, if you don't after 30 days, it's rejected by its own. But I don't, to me, the bid bond goes away at the end of the 30 days too. So that's kind of what ties them to the price. So
right, that's true. So next year we won't have that bond if they go, oh, we changed our mind.
Yes. So that's where my confusion is about extending it.
The bid bond we keep the bid bond if they don't honor that price.
They have the option to honor that at that time. I mean, I'd have to come back to council anyway, but they can say no, they don't have to honor it because there's no bid bond tying them down.
Mm-hmm.
After the 30 days,
right?
The supplier has the option to not honor that bid. However, we can extend it and you can purchase off of it up to 1 year from date of awardal.
Without a bid bond.
Correct. Without
so
a bid
it's
bond.
a guarantee
Yes.
from your company.
Yes.
Okay.
So just like you guys could purchase off of, say, the City of Aberdeen's motor grader bid, you don't have a bid bond for that, but you can still purchase off of it as long as we are willing to offer that to you. Does that make sense?
It does, but can I ask one more question? Didn't we go out on the RFP on this for one machine?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now we're talking technically two machines, one that we're actually going to award and one we're going to, I'm not sure what you call it.
Potentially one.
Potential.
Like, set it over here. I'm not sure what that is, but is there any conflict with that issue with the having?
Well, it's possible we would have gotten better bids had we said we're going to buy one in 2018 and another one in 2019, so make your bid reflect that. Then we would be required to act on both. And I'm not familiar with having purchased off of someone else's bid or from an old bid, so I can't really say whether that's legal or not. But if taking an action tonight to approve this bid tab gives us that ability, I don't see where we lose anything by taking that action. It doesn't obligate us to do anything.
Well,
Right,
I
Matt?
mean, I know that we're able to purchase off other entities' bids. I know that's a thing. I've never been on this side of it, and so I don't know exactly how this works, so I'd have to research it. But I know that's a thing, and I know it's something people do, and that contracts do sit out there for a year that other entities can purchase off of, so I'm sure it's legal somewhere. I just don't have it at my fingertips at the moment.
I think the concern would come into play here to where we would be awarding a bid and not procuring the.
We wouldn't
what we're-
award it. We would
what-
approve it. As we went out for bids, we got 4 compliant bids. They met our specifications. This is the low bid. So we approved this bid tab and gives us the ability, maybe or maybe not. If it does, then we can use it. Otherwise, we'll have to go out to bid. And if we don't take the action, we have to go out to bid. Or order off someone else's.
How much time do we have left on, when's the 30 days up?
This was August 23rd is when we opened bids.
So could we make sure we have our ducks in a row and bring this back in 2 weeks?
Yeah, if we have time, I'd like to take a look
then
at
we
the,
can do the
yeah.
homework.
Yeah.
That'd be
But
good.
at least we can get the process rolling
Yeah.
for the 140 or I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's done. We already did that.
159, 476. Yeah,
we did that.
I mean, if we're good legally from Matt's standpoint, then I don't see any downside of doing what's being suggested. What you actually call it or how you do it, I don't know, but then there's no downside. But I want to make sure that
we're doing it right.
That we're doing it right.
Yeah.
So, Matt, it's
Well, because I mean, I know that
there's
there's those groups out there like the NJPA that they don't award bids at all. They just go out for bids and solicit numbers, and then other entities can purchase off of them. And so I know that there's a way to do it. I just need to double check on it. So
and that's true. What Matt was saying there about NJPA, the state actually on all their trucks, this year they got just a chassis bid, which is state bid. They got that for all their chassis, then all their add-ons is through NJPA for like their boxes and plows and that type of stuff. So
it's no different than getting a favorable bid and deciding to do 2 instead of 1. I mean, really, that's all we're talking. It's just a lot bigger dollar amount than typically.
Right.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
Is it not? I mean, it's the same thing when they bid cars out.
Well,
But you can't. No, you bid out how many
you can.
So we'll table this not even table it. We took action on the item on the agenda, and you can bring it back at the next meeting
council meeting
for further action.
Okay.
How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, council, for your time.
Sorry for mudding that up.
No, that's all right. We're learning. Okay, item number 15, consideration of change order number 2 for the shooting range construction project number 1619 with Rounds Construction in the amount of $205,144.69 for a total contract amount of $570,139.69. Now this was recommended by the committee, and I'll look for motion second for approval. Moved by Councilman Albertson, second by Councilman Danforth. And Heath, would you like to remind us about this briefly?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. Thank you. As discussed in the Public Works Committee, this change order in front of the council this evening is for $205,144.69. And the work related to that change order is to add a 200-yard and 300-yard shooting bay at the shooting range. The project design work is incorporated, This here is for the construction work associated with the berms and the grading and also the shooting structures and shooting bays out there at the site. It is anticipated we'd have this work done by the end of October according to the contractor's current work schedule. And staff recommends award based on the current funding that's available and project savings on other projects that would supplement the overrun of this change order on our current budget.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? It's a good deal. We're getting these lanes that we wanted. Look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Heath. Item 16 is consideration of change order number 4 for the sanitary sewer replacements project number 1808 with Dunnick Inc. for the amount of $8,241.91 for a total contract amount of $520,209.91. And this also was recommended by the Public Works Committee. So I'll look for a motion second. For approval. Councilman Dan Fuller and Councilman Thorson, thank you. Heath.
I struggle with my
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This change order is in relation to the sanitary sewer replacement project, but is more closely related to the excavation work regarding that project. There was petroleum contaminated soil encountered on the project that we had to deal with, and this amount reflects the contractor's expense in having to deal with that soil.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 17 is consideration of change order number 1 for the 3rd Avenue Southwest Reconstruction Project number 1806 with Dunnick Inc. in the amount of $3,124.07 for a total contract amount of $142,199.07. And this was also recommended by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion and second for approval? Moved by Councilman Solom, second by Councilman Bueller. Heath, want to remind us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is a pretty straightforward change order for some additional concrete valley gutter that was incorporated on the project to help help with the drainage concerns that were realized during the construction phase.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 18. Old business. Is there any old business? Councilman Vilhauer?
Because it will happen before we meet again, may I just want to remind the public of the conversion of Kemp to the two-way.
Oh, yes. Good idea. Do I remember the date? Kemp will be switched on a Thursday. And I think that is the 13th. Is it? Okay. It's after the car show and before Kayai. So, oh, excuse me. Sagito Aero Days Parade. Yes, thank you. Any other old business? None. Okay. Is there any new business?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Albertson.
I'm thinking back to what Chris said about having these different things that are out there that, you know, might be looking for a place to land. And we don't have any money set aside now. I know we're where we are in the budget process, but we don't have any money there to help with what he's saying. We need some things done, or at least may need to help with some things. Is there an option? I mean, can we use contingency fund if it looks like, I mean, I'm impressed with what Chris said. He's got 4 or 5 things hanging, and this project would really have helped. Do we have $50,000 contingency that is going to be left from last year, for instance?
No, you can't carry that over, but we have contingency funds budgeted for next year.
I know we have $300,000, but
and this year, do we have any left?
So I'm just wondering if we should keep our ears open here, Chris, in case you are seeing something that we could help with, because we just got done saying the city wants to help, and now you're saying you've got some things in the wings, but I think if we have some money, then I think we should be ready and willing and able to step up.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Just to follow up, too, is we're just in the beginning process of our 5-year plan, and our goal is to raise $1.2 million more than we raised our last go-around, and we're pretty confident we'll get there. But as things come up, it's good to know that, you know, some options, because it's very competitive out there for deals. And part of our plan, not to get in a whole lot of detail now, but we will at some point, is some dedicated funds for downtown revitalization through our fundraising efforts spelled out in there. So I guess that meeting is tomorrow on the Renaissance Zone idea. So I think as it all comes together, I think there'll be plenty of options to revisit some of that, but we can certainly stay in touch on what we have, and I'm usually here if you guys have any questions as well. So
great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. All right. Any other new business? Kristen has some.
I do. I'll keep it short. Okay. In November 16th of 2015, the council approved using William Neal for the auditing services. It would have been for 15, 16, and 17 with the option to use them for 18, 19, and 20. So that was the motion in 2015, and I guess I'm just kind of looking for your guys' approval to take up that option to use them for the 2018, 2019, and 2020 years.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. Councilman Billhauer?
Kristen, one question I've got on that. I mean, the fees, I've got that from the minutes from 3 years ago, very reasonable. I know in the past there's been a little bit of concern about the timeliness of the services. Do you want to speak to that? Would you speak to that?
Yeah, no. I think we've always met our time frame. We have to continue to get the GFOA award for the CAFR. We always have to have it in by June 30th. That's the standard, and we've always met that. So I think it works fine. I feel that, like as Glenn stated, the cost is very, very reasonable, and I've always been happy with William Neal's work. So,
thank you, Councilman Danforth.
Put a little mustache on here. How long have we used them? Have we used them? I think ever since I've been on the council, we've always used them.
Yes.
So it's been an extended period of time, even prior to the contract you're referencing.
Yes.
Believe,
yes.
Glenn, I'm going to kind of give this thought to you because we're in that business, but isn't there a point at which it's good to have a separate and different set of eyes on something, at least for a period of time? Because I think what happens is you look at the same old, right? And you look at it in the same way, and if you're missing something, you might just be missing it. Is there value in that?
There's two schools of thought to that, Mike, and Chris and I had that conversation. In fact, if you look at the federal, for publicly held entities, the Sarbox legislation, and I won't get to explain what that is, that was passed a number of years ago. It does require a change in auditors every, I forget what the period of time is. So there is some thought out there. Now, I bring it locally here, and based upon the experience that we've had and the integrity of the individuals involved, there's a lot to be said for that continuity. I know if we were to go out, first of all, there's nobody else in town. The only other firm in town that would be qualified to do it would be my predecessor firm, which we wouldn't be allowed to engage with because of a conflict or perceived conflict. So we'd be looking at some out-of-town firm, and I know based upon the bids 3 years ago, the fees would be considerably higher. So you weigh the pluses and minuses. And I would opt to continue our relationship with the William Neal firm.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if I necessarily need a motion, but if you'd like to make one.
I would move that we renew or extend our contract with the William Neal firm for 3 more years.
Motion by Vilhauer. Is there a second? Second by Danforth. Any discussion?
Yeah, it's a continued. It was bid out, Dan, and in the motion that was made in 2015, there was the option to renew it. I just would like to take that. Yep. So.
Councilman Lallam.
Any change in fee structure or anything on that?
And at the time that the proposal was made, they actually bid out all 6 of the years. So yeah, that's in there too.
I've got the numbers here if you want them. Okay.
We're good, Glenn.
Wow, Glenn, we're impressed. Anyone else? I do have one short piece of. I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Wow, I'm getting tired. A little bit of other new business. The State Department of Transportation is holding a public hearing regarding this change of speed limits around the roundabout, and that public hearing will be occurring in the Campesca meeting room of the Hampton Inn and Suites at 2720 9th Avenue Southeast in Watertown on Monday, September 24th, 2018 at 1 p.m. And the changes will be that they are reducing the speed limit from 50 miles an hour to 45 miles an hour and then extending it further along the highway. And this is all because of the roundabout construction work that was done. So it's not my gig, but I thought I'd point that out. Is there any other new business? Are there any liaison reports? We do actually have an item to go into executive session this evening in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on a contractual matter, and we do not expect to take action when we come out. So I'll look for a motion second to go into executive session. So moved by Councilman Y. Second by Councilman Danforth. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. We are in executive session.